Hello, and welcome back to part 2 with the Liptons. Kenny and Sarah back again to, aside from reminding us that women are not small men, we dug into fat loss resistance before, and now I kind of want to break it down into the main things that we still seem to forget. And lifting weight, heavy ass weight, is relative to us. For one person, 60 kilos on a bar for a deadlift is really freaking heavy. To me, that's my warm-up. Like, there is a difference between what is heavy for one person, but I used to, like, there are things that I used to believe, like reps in reserve, RPE. Like, I used to believe that stuff. But the thing is, a lot of you guys listening to this do not even know what your max is. You do not know what 10 out of 10 is. You do not know what 1 rep in reserve feels like, because 1 rep in reserve could actually be, hey, you can actually do like 4 there. Or 1 rep in reserve could be like, yeah, if you try that rep, you might break a knee and pop an eyeball out of its socket. Like, they're like, we do not know. We can't tell until we've been there. So I always say, at least make the last rep look like you are struggling. And you don't want to take every single rep to failure. Like, that's not failure. That's you actually giving your max effort on the last set. And it's fine if it means that you need to drop your weight the next thing, because progress isn't linear, but you are effectively still training to that max. And I want to dive into this hormone function. I want to talk about how it actually improves the rest of what we want to do, but more specifically, what a lot of people struggle with, and that's you need to train really hard, but you need to recover harder, because your body does not adapt if it is not recovering. You will not build muscle. You will not have any of those burning fat, burning carbs, enzymes. Enzymes are things that make things activate. It's like putting yeast into making bread. And I've never used that analogy before. That literally just came to my mind. Enzymes are yeast to bread. You need the enzymes to make the bread, to make your fat loss, to make your bread and butter. There we go. To make your bread and butter of body composition, which is fat loss and muscle gain, both of them. So let's touch on that. And
yeah, no, totally. So recovery, like Ruby was saying, is the most important factor. It's something that I believe a lot of people don't quite understand, like, how important it is. So for example, like the no days off crew, where you're going to the gym or exercising, 7 days a week, 6 days a week, whatever it might be. And in part 1, we had spoken about, or used an analogy of, we have extra energy, so I'm going to go to the gym, right? I did 4 days of the gym, but today is my rest day, but you know what? I feel I have like energy, so I'm going to go for a freaking run. And then, maybe after the run, I'm going to go do that boot camp because, hey, it's something different, right? So just want to touch upon like what exercise is, versus what recovery is. So exercise as a whole, whether it is lifting, whether it is running, rowing, whatever you do, exercise is an acute stress to the body, right? So stress, what I mean by that, it's this element of, how would you describe it?
Taking a body out of its normal state. It's taking it out of its homeostasis, aka normal state. That's how
exactly. It's a reason for your body to become stronger, right? It's something that's not normal. It's out of your comfort zone. And if you produce too much stress to your body, then the stress that would ultimately allow for a change would actually lead to a negative one. So with recovery and with stress, we want to make sure that recovery is higher than our actual stress. And what I mean by that is, if you're in the gym lifting, you're actually, causing muscular damages to occur. And if those damages don't have time to repair themselves, then how do you expect your muscles to continue to grow and become stronger? It's like trying to build a house where the cement is still wet. Like, you can't put things on top of like one layer of a house that's still trying to dry. You can't expect to put another layer when it's still, very fragile and it could break apart, right? You want to make sure that cement's dry and then add another layer and then begin to stack in that kind of way. But in general, with working out, especially lifting, we do want to train hard, right? We do want to train in such a way where we are challenging ourselves. So like Sarah and I, for example, we do teach the concept of training to failure, which we describe as going to the point where you can no longer muster another rep physically, mentally, and emotionally. So it's like this three-pronged effect, right? Your body is going to most likely outlast your mind, meaning that your mindset is going to probably quit before your body does. And so, for example, a lot of people will stop when the muscle starts to burn or perhaps start to get really tired. Like there's this work capacity that you have left in your tank that those factors will actually begin at the very beginning, and you want to continue to push past a point where you are challenging yourself. So with like muscular damage, and I hope I don't go like over people's heads here, but with muscular damage, what's happening here when you lift, you're causing these micro damages to occur. And so there's these little control centers in your muscle that are called myonuclei. And so these little control centers determine the size of your muscle bellies. And so the more you train to the point where you're causing significant muscular damage, the myonuclei will actually begin to grow. Like you'll actually have more of them in your muscle bellies, right? Because you've gone to a point where your body has no choice but to get stronger. And if you get to this point where the myonuclei begin to, I guess, grow in number, then you can begin to add the muscle. And with more muscle, your body becomes more energy expensive, which means that you'll be burning calories at a higher rate. And, I think it's really, really important that people do learn how to train to failure, because like Ruby was saying, reps in reserve, it's not going to work if you don't know what your true failure point is, right? Like failure is not just about pushing your muscles to a point where they can't contract anymore, right? Or from a physical, mental, emotional level, but it's also this ability to become stronger mentally. Like you can quite literally prove to yourself, hey, I actually had way more to give. And when I have more to give, then your, at least in my opinion, your foresight to what you think you can do becomes very expanded. And what you thought you can do before in this little box now is really, really wide. And then once you understand, how far you can actually push yourself, right? How strong you really are, because remember, the human body is super, super strong. You just need to allow yourself to be there. And your mindset is what's going to allow you to do that. And once you do understand what failure is and really how to push yourself, then this is where you can begin to modulate your different, training intensities, which, comes at a point. But I think the most important thing is first establishing that type of intensity, if that makes sense.
That perfect timing for something that I really wanted Sarah to touch on, which I said something about, because it's literally about how you grow in the process. But I wanted to touch on the myonuclei thing as well, so you can touch on it after she does this little spiel, because it's so important. But having that extra, let's just say I call the myonuclei the muscle's brain. So having more of those also impacts the way your body does its hormonal functioning, because it needs to maintain that muscle mass. I want you to talk about how that then helps fat loss and helps the journey. But also on this note, this is exactly what, like, myonuclei is kind of like fat cells. As soon as you add extra fat to your body, you get extra fat cells and you cannot get rid of them. Myonuclei is 90% similar. When you get more of these brains in your muscles, they're very hard to get rid of. And that's exactly why my body bounced back so quick after just maintaining it. And it's like in the interim of the emotional Ruby in lockdown, I'm like, oh my God, my body. But like, I knew deep down, I've been lifting in like the proper way for 7 years. I know that I'm gonna get my body bouncing back, because my muscle, I get like, it's just gonna pop, and I'm able to stay lean at the same time because it's digging into the old myonuclei. It is still there. Like, it doesn't take much to maintain it, and it takes quite a lot to detrain it and get rid of it. Whereas fat cells just stay there unless you want to get them sucked out by stupid surgical vacuum cleaners. But yeah, I just wanted to put that there so you can dig into that after Sarah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So we want to talk about a little bit like going back to part one, what we were talking about, like in terms of tying yourself to the process versus tying yourself to the outcome. And diet culture ties you to the outcome. That's what it does, right? But I think the biggest question that like I want to ask anybody that's listening is, what did losing 30 pounds in 30 days teach you? Like, what did it honestly teach you? If you have done that and you've done a quick fix diet, what did it teach you? Because chances are you might be listening to this and you might be saying, well, I lost the 30 pounds, but then I gained it all back and then some. But like, what if you could lose the 30 pounds, but it takes a little bit longer, but it never comes back? Like, what if you tied yourself to the process that actually taught you how to maintain the weight that you've lost? You probably would save decades. I know so many women that have literally spent decades. I talked to someone that started their first diet when they were 8 years old. 8. That's insane. And that's a problem. And that should not be a normal thing, because, you know, mainstream fitness, they put, you know, really pretty bros on and really awesome marketing on a lot of these diets, but they don't teach you anything. Because what happens when you're done with that diet? What happens when you're done with that 12-week challenge? What happens then? Like, yeah, we lost weight. That's awesome. That's really freaking phenomenal. That's an awesome thing to accomplish. But what happens after that? And I think, you know, as an industry as a whole, like mainstream fitness, it's hard because like everybody that gets started in some sort of diet, they want to better their lives. And unfortunately, the mainstream fitness tends to prey on that because you get desperate and you get to a point where you hate your body and you just want change immediately. And I get that. I have certainly been there. I'm sure Ruby has been there. I know Kenny probably has been there as well. And a lot of people who are maybe listening to this have also been there. And you know, taking time to educate yourself on what actually works. I can't tell you, like, if I knew what I know now back then, how many years I would have saved myself of just pain and desperation of wanting to feel and look a certain way. All of that would have been gone had I just taken an extra year to just put the time and effort into the process versus trying to get an immediate result. And that's something that as a coach, and I'm sure you both agree, is probably one of the most rewarding aspects of it, is watching someone who spent decades dieting and trying to fix their bodies in a way that, you know, they think that dropping a dress size is going to make them happy. But it doesn't, because they don't tie themselves to the process, one, and they don't establish habits that are going to allow them to keep those results. And watching someone transform, not physically, but mentally, understanding what happens when you establish habits over a long period of time and the results that follow that, and the fact that you can keep those results is easily one of the most rewarding things as a coach, is watching people transform in that way. And it's about establishing small incremental habits. Like most people think, oh, it's going to take massive action, massive steps for me to get from what I want to, or from where I am to where I actually want to be. And that's not the case. It's like small little things that you can do to get 1% better every day, and establishing and you know, mastering those habits is what's going to make a difference for you in the long run. But I promise you that if you take the time to, one, invest in yourself, and two, educate yourself on what actually is backed by science when it comes to your body versus falling for a gimmick, you're going to be a lot happier.
I just thought of another analogy which I loved, and all of that is just like trying to jump into grade 12 and do the HSC, which is what we call it here, or jump into grade 12 there and do whatever it's called over there. But it's the same thing. It's like you haven't yet learned the basics. You haven't yet done the work, done the studies beforehand to get to grade 12. And it doesn't like it. I don't really want to compare it to doing a master's, because it's kind of different, but at the same time, it's your life. You are continuously in study, whatever it is, to become the best you. And you can't solve a problem with the same mindset that fixed it, which is the other thought that came. And if you're going into a diet or a transformation or just wanting to change where you are now because you hate where you are now, if your mindset remains the same from day 1 to day 12, from day 1 to day X, Y, Z, whatever, you're still going to feel the same way as day 1 because you haven't grown in the process. And that's probably the thing that everybody just wipes aside, because you said it yourself. You couldn't see yourself doing that extra year. And I said it to one of my girls, I said it to a couple of my girls as well. I'm like, think about the person you can be in 3 years' time. And I got shot back straight away. Oh, why can't I do it in 12 weeks or 16 weeks like these other people? I'm like, you literally just said the other day, you've been trying all of these different things and you're never getting results. You can never get the same results. It's because you haven't yet brought yourself out of that mindset, shifted the way that you see progress, and actually put yourself in a position to diet. And the biggest thing that I wanted to bridge this with is imagine yourself going into any holiday season, any social setting, any weekend where there's barbecues, whatever it is, being in control of food, not feeling like you need to drink every single beer, wine, shot of whiskey that's on the table. I should have said vodka, but vodka is disgusting. But whatever is on the table, because it's there and you restricted for so long, or you feel so restricted regardless. And you have to just jump back onto trying to lose weight again after this day's over. What if you actually were in control of what you put on your plate and you didn't feel the need to taste this chip, that chip? Like, imagine feeling so in control of what you choose to eat at any occasion. When you go to the shops, you put everything you want into your shopping trolley. I do that all the time now and I love it. I go to every social occasion now and I choose to either follow exactly what I know is going to fit my calorie allowance for that day, because I'm not going to be someone that's going to commit to partying every single weekend, because I know that's not going to help my body. That's not going to help how I feel, my digestion, my gut health, my mood. But I choose my battles. If I don't want to track one and actually enjoy myself, have whatever, I do that too. But that is so minimal because I know how I feel afterwards. But so many people do not even care about how they feel because they're so tied to, I just want to lose this fat.
Yeah. And I mean, I would say like most people, like it's been so normalized in diet culture to feel like crap, which is not a normal thing. It is not normal to feel like you can't function throughout the day, or like you're in a crappy mood, or like you want to take a nap at 2:00 in the afternoon every day. That's not a normal thing, but it becomes so normal because everybody does it, because diet culture, basically that's normal in diet culture. And, you know, people tend to gain the most weight during this time of year because they've gone through restrictions for so long, and they put themselves in a position where their hormones aren't functioning properly, or they're just in a very vulnerable state from a body perspective where they're going to accrue more fat. And this time of year is notorious for that. So because people put themselves through these really chronic and detrimental diets, people rebound really, really hard during the holidays, instead of like, okay, well, I've been consistent with, you know, making sure that I'm getting nutrient dense foods 90% of the year, and, you know, being able to stay on top of my goals because I'm able to enjoy things that I still like without the restriction, and going into the holidays guilt-free and feeling like, okay, well, I'm going to eat this for, you know, if I want to have a slice of pie, like I'm going to have a slice of pie. And if I don't feel the need to do it because I'm not restricted in that way. So, you know, if you could approach the holidays in that way and not gain, you know, a ton of weight in between now and New Year's, wouldn't that be significantly better than trying to, you know, jump into another diet on January 1st? You know, that's a big thing too, as a coach, is being able to watch individuals go into the holidays and say, wow, I went into the holidays and I've been tracking, or I've been, you know, monitoring food for so long that I kind of can look at something and know what I need and not go overboard and feel satiated, not feel restricted, and come out the other side not feeling guilty and having a really good relationship with food. Like, I want that for everybody, and you should want that for yourself too. And people just tend to think, oh, well, I gotta I got to cut out carbs, or I got to, cut out whatever, come the new year, because I went overboard, between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And, that really shouldn't be the case. And it doesn't have to be.
This is a perfect time for you to actually talk about how being in such a stress state and being like having this state of we're resistant to actually the changes can impact the food, like the being stressed out eating food kind of thing.
Yep. Kenny, I know you want to take this one.
Oh, sure. Excuse me.
Looking at you.
Yeah. It's funny. I want to actually say something on top of what Sarah said too, which is your mindset around food and like your perception of food. I don't know if anyone's experienced this, but I used to be someone who believed really, really heavily, especially when I was first getting into fitness, in clean versus dirty food. Like there's this dichotomy of these foods are dirty, which are inherently bad for you, and these foods are clean, which are inherently good for you. And there was this very hard line that separated the two. And, that type of mindset, and I know for most, it might exist today, or perhaps you are part of a camp, right? The keto camp, or perhaps the carnivore camp, or, whatever camp it might be. When you become married to a very strict way of eating, it can inadvertently turn into this really poor relationship with food and a very poor understanding of food. And so, for us, and for Sarah and I, and I'm sure Ruby, you do the same thing, like with macros, right? Those that are perhaps on macros or don't know what macros are just quite literally the proteins, carbs, and fats. So if you look at a nutrition label, it's on the back of that label, and it labels out how much protein, how much carbs, how much fats on your food, right? But Ruby, you had mentioned something about like school, right? Like you had mentioned that going 12th grade or whatever it might be, right? And when it comes down to obtaining the skill set, you typically go to school, or you typically invest in some sort of course, right, where you learn about whatever you're trying to do. And macros in a very similar way are like that, where you're learning about food on a deeper level, right? You're learning about how all foods, irrelevant of what they are comprised of either proteins, carbs, and fats. And so when you eat food, it gets digested and gets broken down into these little smaller parts that ultimately are these things, these three things, right? And when you, at least in our opinion, when you eat or view food in this kind of manner, it really opens the door to, hey, like Ruby said, you can go to the market without having these guilt trips, or you can go to the barbecues without having these guilt trips, because if you take the time to understand food on a deeper level, similar like how you would do a math class, right? Where you take geometry, you take algebra, you take calculus, whatever it might be. But when you leave school, unless you're a mechanical engineer or something like that, you're probably not going to use, the Pythagorean theorem, or you're not going to be using, these weird, outlandish, very specific numerical theories, right? What you're probably going to do is you're probably going to pay your bills. You're going to probably, use your calculator from time to time, but you're using the general concepts of math. And that's how macros work. We're using the general concept of food. And so your mindset around food, if you are in these camps where I have to stop eating carbs, or I only have to eat protein, or I have to whatever it might be, and you are trying to shove yourself into a box that you don't fit in, then it's only a matter of time till you jump off the wagon, or rather get thrown off the wagon, break your face, and then start your next diet where you're probably going to fail as well, unless you take the time to really just step back and create your own diet, create your own library of food and preferences, whatever you may be. So I did want to say that before diving into the next topic, which Ruby, can you remind me? I just completely forgot.
It's actually literally touching on the same thing, because if you approach food in such a dichotomous view, or such a black and white view, and realize, like, yes, 80% of the time see it, well, actually, it's not just seeing it as macros, it's seeing it as micros as well, because the micros are what assist your digestion, assist your metabolism, assist your body's functioning. And that's why it's important to see food as food. That's what it is. It's food. It's made up of macros. It's made up of micros. But if, like, stress isn't just what we were talking about with the dieting stress and the training stress, but stress also is our perception of food. And if we're going to perceive food in such a stressed out way, that's going to impact not only our satiety levels, our digestion levels, but it can impact our body composition massively. Not only not only saying, oh, okay, this is a diet food, and then it makes you easily demolish it, even though it's the same calories as the other group that had the same thing, the same milkshake. This is a milkshake study that had the same milkshake that was like they were told it was triple the calories, but it was actually the same, and they didn't even finish it. Like, your perception of food is going to dictate the outcome, not only physically but also biologically within your body. And I'm going to let Kenny break that down into the simple stuff.
Yeah. So let's say, you're going, it's the holidays, right? You're probably going to be, with your family or friends or whatever it might be, right? And if you have two people who are eating the same foods at the same dinner with the same friends and family, whatever it might be, and one individual is super stressed, like, holy crap, I am freaking out about eating this food because I can't fit it or whatever it might be, it's going to get me fat. Your own, woes about whatever perceptions of food you have, versus this person who is just enjoying the moment, enjoying the experience of being with family and friends. This person is probably going to digest the food better than this person. So the emotional attachment that you have with how food is going to affect you can actually affect your digestion, and it can make things worse because you are putting your body into this very high sympathetic state, which we don't want. It's a flight or fight response. And so typically you have a sympathetic state in like the gym, right? Where you do want that because you're about to lift very heavy, right? But if you're having a sympathetic state while eating at a very, nice family dinner, and your body's like freaking out, where it's like, I better get the hell out of here, or I better fight this, turkey leg or whatever you're freaking out about, it's going to digest the food very poorly. And not only that, but you're also probably going to miss out on memories, right? And so a common saying and Sarah actually made this up, memories over macros, right? Like we do prescribe that, where there are going to be moments where food, it's a huge part of our culture. I mean, cultures around the world, like you literally cannot avoid it. Whether you're going on your first date, whether you're going out with your friends, whether you're visiting, for business or whatever it might be, the chances are that food is probably going to be involved, right? You're probably going to go to lunch or dinner, whatever it might be. And our hope, as coaches, is that you can enjoy those things and not have this negative perception about food and be comfortable around food, right? Because it can negatively affect not just your digestion, how you absorb the foods, but also just how you live life. And you don't want to go through, at least in our opinion, you don't want to go through life, fearing food. I've been there. I actually, I used to eat only tuna, avocado, and lime juice. And that sounds freaking weird, but I was a cyclist and I had cycling buddies. And they told me, hey, Kenny, if you want to get really lean, if you want to get really good at cycling, you got to eat this. I was like, count me in, baby, I'm in. And then I literally ate that meal 3 times a day, and ate it for probably 3 months straight. And I did not eat anything else because I was afraid that, hey, this is going to take me away from my goals. And that was a shitty place to be. I did a lot of damage to my body back then. And I'll tell you, there's really weird diets out there, including that one. I don't even know what the hell that's called, but that was like the most outlandish diet. Like, I don't know where it came from, but that's what happened. But it really, looking back at those days and now knowing what I know, kind of like what Sarah had alluded to in either part 1 or part 2, it's like, if I can grab my old self and like freaking grab him by the shirt and tell him, stop doing this stupid shit, like I totally would. And it's like, my God, just live your life, eat food, enjoy it. And like Ruby said, there is obviously, you do want to have high quality food, right? Because there's micronutrients involved and those are very important. But, from a macro perspective, like in terms of like the greater picture, that's what I mean. If you do struggle with this, if you do struggle with like, is that food clean? Is that food dirty? I encourage you to learn about food, on a deeper level, and really ask yourself, like, hey, what is your ultimate goal? Like, is the weight to be lost really that important to you, or is more important than your overall happiness, right? Because we want to be happy, because if you're not mentally happy, it is going to negatively affect everything that's going on. All the work in the gym, all the work on the nutrition, it's going to play a huge role in mitigating that, and you can only get so far. Sustainability is the most important thing. And so, yeah, in my opinion, macros are a really great way to just learn about food on a very deeper level, and also avoiding those pitfalls where, like, you fall into like the carnivore diet or the keto diet, or whatever diet you're trying to force yourself into. Now, diets as a whole, they all work. It's just a matter of, does it work for you?
It's asking the question, is it really worth it? Is it really worth losing your life in the meantime? Is it worth it's kind of like you're walking on broken glass. You're walking on a surface that is degrading your health, instead of walking on one that's already smoothly paved for you. And that's the thing, like, the path is smoothly paved, but it is still a winding path. There is no such thing as a straight path to the place you want to go. And the more that you keep trying to reach this destination, the harder you're making it for yourself, because even us as really knowledgeable coaches do not even know how that's going to pan out for you, because our body today is going to respond differently to our body in a couple of months' time. So how the hell can you expect to know how the hell the whole journey is going to pan out? And after everything that Kenny and Sarah have said, we can shake ourselves by the shirt. We can get a wet fish and slap us until we just can't stand the smell anymore. And probably the scales will scratch our face too, but we can slap ourselves until deathbed. But a lot of us will still not listen to that person shaking us, because we just want that end result. We just hate where we are so much. We just want to be loved. We just want to be worthy. We just want all these things. But we're only focusing on the fact that we want to lose weight, even though we know that we want all these other things. We're not willing to fulfill them because we just want to lose weight. Like, it's that emotional attachment to just wanting to lose weight. We miss the fact that there are so many other things that we want to achieve in life that are attached to our holistic, with the W, feeling, that are going ignored. So it's always going to be this forever chase of what Kenny said, of struggle, of hating the process, of making it miserable, and not really having any memories throughout that lifetime. And I know mine wasn't really mindset related. Mine was more the fact that I had a competition and I didn't allow myself that flexibility. But I did not enjoy one of the most precious memories with my parents on a 12-day cruise, because all I was focusing on was I need to do my work, because I had to do my work online. I have to stick to the way that my nutrition is. I'm not going to the restaurant with you guys. I'm going to go to the buffet where I can control my food. And is it really worth it in the end? Like, if I could go back and tell that person to just enjoy the time with my parents, I would. But I probably still wouldn't listen to myself, because I was stubborn then. But at the same time, I would. Oh no, I just want this end result because it's my competition, and it matters as well. That, yeah, that's the dialogue we all have with ourselves. But it is so important to realize you are human, and that's why you have it. But you need to try and think of yourself in 3 years' time, as hard as that is for you. Is there any concluding remarks so we can end this up and still have like a really short chat before time runs out?
Honestly, I think that wrapped it up like so beautifully. I think just remember too, just to what Ruby was saying, like being desperate and just like hating your body and wanting immediate results. Like, I think we touched upon it a little bit in part 1, but if you're not happy, or if you can't find positivity or happiness surrounding your current state and your current body, 30 pounds from now is not going to matter. Like, you need to find confidence and positive affirmations surrounding your current state of being, because your body is going to your body's going to do what your mind believes. Like the two they're interconnected. They're not separate entities. Having a mindset of, okay, well, this is what I love about my body. Here's how I want to better it. Changing and framing the way that you talk to yourself is going to make a huge difference when it comes to your overall progress. And I know that sounds really silly, but because the mind and body are one and the same, this is kind of touching upon more of the psychology side of things. But if you cannot find happiness with your current state of being, you're not going to find it in 30 pounds from now.
Yeah. And I guess the last thing I want to say is that, there's plenty of mistakes that I'm sure we've all made, and there could be a whole 2 parts to just talk about those mistakes. And, the one thing that really just doesn't upset me, but makes me sad is more so seeing people become manipulated by these quick fixes, because I've been there personally and it's not fun. And the health consequences that do happen from them may not be immediately noticeable, but like Ruby and Sarah were saying, like, we do want to take our time with changing our body, and that those damages that occur can stack over time. And if there was, and I wish I could, for anyone that's watching this or listening to this, I wish I really could just show you a window to my life and like a window to all the mistakes that I personally have made, and try to express to you like, hey, it is very important that you do look into the long run of your future. Like Ruby said, 3 years, like that's a great time frame, because that allows enough time for you not only to mentally transform, but also physically, and not just transform, but most likely keep the results that you have, as opposed to, let me jump into this really quick fix and try to get these results. And if you do get the results, are you really going to sustain them? And, history tells us that you're probably not. Statistically, you're probably not going to. If anything, you're going to rebound really awful. And it's a sad thing to watch, because I've been there. And if anything, if you're in a spot where you're, hate your body, or you want to be stronger or lose fat, whatever it might be, you're just not happy with your physique, taking the small step to do something better, like go to the gym, eat healthier, these small little incremental wins, like those are things that you should be proud of. And try not to let your emotions get the best of you. Because when you are responding with emotion, your logic goes right out the window. Like you're actually in a state where people can take advantage of you and manipulate you. And you don't want that. And again, there is that desirable factor where aesthetics are heavily pushed, and you really have to consider your health, because healthy bodies respond to body. Put your health first, not aesthetics.
That is such a perfect way to end it. I am gonna cue in Harry Potter's history repeating itself, so you can actually repeat it to yourself over and over again. But I cannot thank you both enough for coming on. It has most fun podcast having both of you bounce ideas. It's like, I'm someone that loves an actual discussion with people who make the science simple without the sugarcoating. And I'm going to put both of their Instagram handles down below. And honestly, it's the no bullshit approach. Stop following people that show their booties saying that it's booty bands and it's beast gays, because they're not your people. So I'll leave it at that, because it's about to cut out. And thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much, Ruby.
Yeah, it's been an honor. It was awesome.
Thank you.